You cannot call an instructor-led course an education class unless you have a qualified, trained, and competent instructor. If you have a class led by somebody not trained, you have an information workshop at best. Now, there's a big distinction, and schools know this, yet they fail to address this basic component when it comes to teaching personal finance. There's not a state in this country that mandates financial literacy education that has the training and professional development for educators where they will be a competent instructor in teaching that subject matter. Now, with all other core coursework, they are fully behind having trained and competent instructors. If you're a math, science, social studies, English teacher, you went to elementary school, high school, college, you've maybe earned a postgraduate degree. In addition, you've earned some certification to be able to teach and likely had some type of observed teacher training, and now you're qualified to teach. But with personal finance, they completely ignore the biggest differentiator of a good outcome in class, which is the teacher. The teacher is the primary driver of student outcomes. All research points to that, and yet with all states, they fail to address that in a meaningful way. I would argue that personal finance led by an unqualified educator can result in very serious consequences, a lot more serious than if you have an unqualified math instructor, right? If you have an unqualified math instructor, maybe you don't get the question right on a test. There might be some problems, but again, there's extensive vetting with math, science, social studies, and English teachers. But with personal finance, there could be some major problems you experience personally. These kids can get into financial trouble based off what the information sharer is teaching them. Second, personal finance is a more difficult subject to teach than other core subjects. The reason being is every kid in there comes from a different socioeconomic background. Every kid has different habits and behaviors. Every child in there has different goals and dreams and confidence and understanding of money already. Every person in there is a unique person, and it's largely behavioral, and if you're not trained, you cannot address that. Now, with those other subjects, you don't have those challenges because maybe you have a bad habit of counting on your fingers. That's easily resolved, but there's not that habit and emotion and psychology-driven decision making we need to address in personal finance. And third, it's just really not fair for the educators. These educators come to us worried, and they're saying, hey, they told me to teach this, but they provided no information, no training. They told me to find free resources online. There's no structure. There's no clear outcomes. There's no clear thing to follow. This is not the exception. This is what the common experience is of teachers out there across the country. And it's sad for them. First, they don't have the knowledge of the content. They don't understand the content. Many of them have questions about their own personal finance. They lack the confidence because of that. Again, with the other subjects they're teaching, let's say they're English teacher, they spent their whole life studying that, many years teaching that, and this is a new subject for most. In addition, they don't have the materials that will help and support them. Absolutely no training or typically people to guide them and advise them on what to do, how to teach. And they're left feeling lost. Many of them will skim over the material and really not provide that education. Now, they do know some education methodologies. However, a lot of those methodologies don't apply the same when we're working with personal finance because, again, it's largely behavioral and emotional what we're trying to do. There's different outcomes we're trying to achieve as well. With most core subjects, you're trying to get them to pass a post-test, right? With personal finance, we're trying to mold and modify positive behaviors, helping them gain confidence to make qualified decisions, help them set the systems they need and get in place so they have processes to follow, helping them gain that information and knowledge so they can make competent decisions, helping them create plans and analyze different paths that they can go. So there's a lot involved with teaching personal finance, and it's time for schools that mandate personal finance to focus on the educator. Again, that's the most critical component of student outcomes. All the research points to that. Every other subject you require to have trained and competent instructors and content knowledge in the field that they're teaching. But again, with personal finance, this is completely ignored. It's time we strongly encourage these schools to do what's right for our kids ensure these kids graduate with real education, not some random information that won't benefit their lives.